All right.
All right, welcome.
Yeah,
Doug?
thanks for having us. Welcome everyone. So we'll go ahead. We'll get started by introducing ourselves. My name's Doug Evans. I am the business solutions consultant at WorkSource Snohomish County, and I have my colleague with me, Ty.
Hi there, I'm Ty Reed, the Business Engagement Project Manager for Workforce Snohomish. Glad to be here this morning.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to chatting with you today about what hiring looks like in 2021. So take the next slide, please. So a lot of folks have been asking, where is the workforce? Now, the numbers quantified right here are already pretty staggering. Oh, and my screen toggled away here. There we go. So the numbers here are already pretty staggering. So in the third quarter of 2020, nearly 30 million baby boomers left the job market and retired. We had seen numbers from Southwest Airlines. They had 28% of their workforce retire through the pandemic. That's a huge hit to just one industry. We saw somewhere between 900,000 and 1 million mothers stop working to support their families. Daycare centers are operating at 88% capacity compared to 2019. So we know that childcare is a huge barrier for those working parents. And then we see that nearly a quarter of the workers between the age of 20 and 34 are not considered part of the U.S. workforce. That's 14 million folks. So right here, we're looking at something around 45, 50 million folks unattached to the labor force for whatever reason. If you'll toggle to the next slide. Oh, there we go. So one of the things we wanted to ask ourselves is why would somebody not be working? I broke it out into generational cohorts. As we've been going through a lot of the conferences over the past many years, we see a lot of information from these generational cohorts. What are their impacts? What are their unique key needs? So what I wanted to understand is why would each generational cohort not be participating in the workforce? So baby boomers, as mentioned, many of them had early retirement through COVID-19. We saw COVID-19 vulnerability. Many of these folks were considered the most vulnerable people to COVID-19 and the pandemic itself. So many of them wanted to retire early to protect their safety and health. For those ones that did want to return back to work, after layoff, getting back to work remained very, very difficult for them. You'll see the same thing is true with the Gen Xers. Between Gen Xers and baby boomers, many of them see age as the number one obstacle for entry into the workforce. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that WorkSource offers a class called Myths of Maturity. And in this class, Myths of Maturity, we help folks understand how to navigate age and entering the workforce. However, the space becomes not only how to navigate, but it becomes a space where folks can really talk about these issues collectively. And what we find is that this experience is so common amongst folks 45 and over. Getting access to the job market when you're that age can feel, and the numbers show, are pretty challenging for those folks. So we know that the impact for those workers is huge. So the next cohort I split kind of in the middle here. We put our parents. Parents can sometimes slot somewhere in between the Gen Xers and the millennials, or Zillennials, sometimes they're called. So with parents, why would they not be working right now? Well, the cost of childcare is astronomical. I've seen data all over the internet about the cost of childcare as well as the capacity of childcare right now. So we're seeing that as a huge impact. COVID quarantine protocol. Anecdotally, I could name on both my hands right now parents who've had to quarantine due to COVID-19 and their child's impact during the school year already. This has caused a lot of fear for entering the workforce and a lot of fear just for their children's safety in general. So that is a huge impact right now. And then, of course, lack of access to childcare because of those capacity issues. Now, millennials, this one's close and near and dear to my heart as a millennial. One of the things that millennials have identified as their biggest barrier to continuing to enter and be in the workforce is burnout. Burnout is one of the number one things you'll hear from millennials. We enter the job market highly educated with no access to jobs, and you heard about millennial hustle. Millennials were working their regular job, they were working their passion project, and they were networking and moving and grooving. So millennials are, and I'll speak for myself. Millennials are pretty tired. So what was born out of that, out of the pandemic, were so many remote jobs, and so the desire to remain remote. You're seeing millennials walk away from great jobs because their employers want them back in the office. So that's a big challenge. Poor leadership. That's cited all over the Pew Research. I mean, you'll find it anecdotally all over the place. Poor leadership is something that's making millennials want to exit the workforce. And because of that, we're finding the millennials are starting their own businesses. That has been a huge thing that we've seen, that millennial hustle attitude, where they were working on their passion project. Now they're starting their own businesses. And then, of course, the reorientation of priorities. So a lot of folks were reorienting their priorities, and I think this could be said of every generational cohort as well. I don't want to pin this down on the millennials. Of course, this one was near and dear to my heart, so it was the easiest to populate this section. Gen Zers. Now, this is an interesting cohort. These are the folks who are fresh in the workforce. Why are they not working? This is a really interesting thing, and we saw somebody in the last in our main lobby section saying that they've struggled to hire folks into the construction field. So we want to identify what is preventing Gen Z from joining the workforce. The rising cost of living may make work seem undesirable. If your first job is going to be $15 an hour, but you need $25 an hour to pay your rent, you may just choose to live with mom and dad and not join the workforce. Cost and time of training. Access to training is really challenging. Here at WorkSource and Workforce Snohomish and Snohomish STEM, we have all of these different pathways to enter work, but they're challenging to navigate. And I think we want to pretend as the people who manage these programs, we like to think they're very easy to navigate, and we've set it up so it's a nice direct pipeline. But the reality for these young folks, especially we learn in our youth programs through WorkSource, is that these programs are challenging to navigate. They're not easy, especially with the responsibilities that already come with trying to leave home and join college and all of those other different things that they're doing. And then, of course, one of the things that, and again, I think this would go for each generational cohort, is lack of knowledge. But I think that flips over to the employer. Employers have very discrete jobs that they're offering, and a lot of folks don't know how they slot into those jobs. And so I think for Gen Z, that's one of the largest barriers, but I think that could be said for each generational cohort. And I'll take the next slide. So we have some big myths that are happening right now. The big myth is that no one wants to work. You will hear that continuously. I think the media was really pushing this for quite some time. I think they're starting to realize that that's not necessarily the case. But what I would really like to do is dispel that myth, because it is a big myth. Unemployment numbers speak for themselves. We are almost at pre-pandemic unemployment levels. And when we were pre-pandemic, we were struggling to hire. It was so challenging. Businesses called me every day saying they couldn't find folks. So what was already a constricted labor pool has become even more constricted. So people are fighting for these little scraps. Another myth that is, again, really near and dear to my heart, especially as a millennial, and I want to make sure that Gen Z doesn't have the same thing that millennials had put onto them. Millennials got called kind of the entitled generation, and now I'm seeing the same thing happen with our Gen Z cohort now. They don't want to do the hard work. And I just don't think that's the case. Many express challenges finding those entry level and early career opportunities that meet cost of living. You already heard me mention that. And then many of them may be in school in hopes of obtaining employment opportunities that meet those costs of living. We always say if you don't like your job, if you're not making enough, you can always find a new job. But then those jobs start to be unfilled. So we need to make sure that even at those low level jobs that we're providing those real wage jobs. And if you are one of those businesses that you know that you need to provide those real wage jobs to bring those folks in. So we talk a lot about the myths that are being told about the workers, but what myths might a business be telling themselves about their employment opportunity? And I think this is huge. Is your job a quality job? Are you telling yourself that the job you're offering is a great quality job? Does your opportunity pay as well as you think it does? Have you done that market research? Have you done that research to determine if your job actually meets cost of living standards? Is your job inclusive, diverse, and safe? Throughout, I think over the past 2 years, we've seen a huge reckoning with the need for diversity, equity, and inclusion in our workspaces. But I don't think that we've done the next step, which is making sure those spaces are in fact inclusive and safe. So I think a lot of folks are working on those opportunities. But I think that there are bigger ways that can be focused on making sure that, and we see that in the data. Many people who are people of color have said, I don't have to deal with the microaggressions in the workplace, working from home. I can turn my camera off, and those interactions that used to impact me are not impacting me anymore. But then we say, but you got to come back into the office. That is not the diversity and equity and inclusion opportunities that these businesses said they were going to try to uphold. That you have great leadership. I think that's a huge myth. Leaders love to think that they're great leaders. I have a team that I lead in certain projects, and I love to imagine myself as this great leader to them. But I know my blind spots, and I hope I make myself open to them. But to really identify, are you a great leader, especially these lower level, entry level type jobs? I can tell you from firsthand experience, when I worked in the food service industry early in my career, I had management that was very unkind. That'll be my polite way of saying that. So re-envisioning what leadership looks like. And then competitive benefits. Everybody says they offer competitive benefits. And then you go online. Healthcare, as an example, is a given. Healthcare is not a benefit. Healthcare is a given, especially during a pandemic. So if you're not offering those types of benefits, you may be telling yourself that myth that you have those competitive benefits. We look at places like Dick's Drive-In as an example. They're a fast food restaurant that's offering childcare benefits. And we know those childcare benefits are so critical right now. So that is a competitive benefit. Offering educational opportunities, rather than offering them as a leader, pushing that person into those educational opportunities. And I'll take the next slide there. So how can we navigate this? And Ty, I'm so sorry if I'm going over time here. I'm trying to go quick. So quality jobs. How do we navigate this? Offering quality jobs that offer growth, take the risk on unknowledgeable job seekers, to offer long-term support. And this doesn't necessarily mean a long-term job. I spoke with Brooklyn Brothers Pizzeria the other day, who was struggling to hire. And they said, people don't quit here once. People come in and we support them throughout their career journey. They may work for us, then go to college, then come back in those gaps. And then to speak to Brooklyn Brothers once again, they also offer a $20 minimum wage and then offer tips. This is a pizzeria, a local pizzeria. Flexibility, working from home, hybrid schedules, the end to the 9 to 5. There's plenty of information about that online right now. I sent an email at 10 o'clock last night before I checked in for bed. but I could have clocked out at 4:40 and then sent that email at 10 at night. So things like that, offering 4-day work weeks or performance-based work weeks. There's information I've read about in Germany where they don't reward you for staying extra at work. If you're staying extra, if you are working a 41-hour week, you're working too long and you need some time management skills. So obviously this is a big culture shift for us, I think. Pay that meets the cost of living. The National Low Housing Income Alliance, National Low Housing Income Coalition says that to afford a 2-bedroom apartment at fair rate here in Washington State, you need $60,000 in income. That's almost $30 an hour. So if your business isn't offering $30 an hour, you may not be meeting those cost of living needs. Training opportunities, taking advantage of those training opportunities. WorkSource offers things like the Incumbent Worker Training Program, which can help your business upskill their existing staff. Again, as I had mentioned earlier, paying for education or identifying those leaders at work and pushing them into those educational opportunities because perhaps there's a lack of knowledge on their end, and offering industry recognized credentials. Making sure that if they leave you, they're still going to continue to grow our community. And then last but not least for me, I think the biggest thing to navigate the changes right now, especially as I talk to businesses every single day throughout Snohomish County, is I think we need to start changing the paradigm of work. For so long, we have focused on this live to work model. And I think the model is flipping over on its head. I think we are looking for a work to live. We are working so that we can go and live our lives. I think we need to see people as people and not as disposable workers. Now, this isn't so much true in the professional managerial class that many of us work in, but as soon as you start looking in these in other industries, these lower level industries, we don't always see people as people. We see them as disposable. And again, I'm very lucky to be in the position I'm in. I've worked so many jobs. I wish I could had the time to tell you about them now. But it was not until I joined the professional managerial class that I felt like I was seen as another person and not as a disposable worker. And then the biggest thing, slow down, take time with people. I think we're in a society of instant, fast. We need that worker, and then when we don't need that worker, we don't need that worker. I think that it is so tantamount that we slow down and take our time with our workers. It doesn't feel like we have it right now, but it's what we need to do to make sure that we continue to grow, that we have a healthy workforce. So with that said, I would like to pass it over to Ty, who will talk a little bit more about some of the programs and offerings that he works with.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it. I'm going to set up the folks that are listening. I am now going to attempt to do in about 6 minutes a presentation I normally do in 45. So buckle up. Next slide, please. I think the next slide is actually Doug's contact info. Yes. So that's Doug and Jim's, and then here's my info. So in a time in the marketplace when so many employers are having trouble finding workers, one of the easiest ways for employers to fix this problem or address this problem is to look in talent pools that you might not normally look in. And one of the biggest ones that we have available to us is the second chance employee talent pool. And those are typically people that are, in recovery from a couple of different things, either in recovery from past addiction and alcoholism, and they're rebuilding their lives, and maybe they have some job gap that they've experienced. And then the other are folks that have been previously criminal justice involved. And there's a lot of us out there. And I say us because I was also previously criminal justice involved. And in Washington State, according to the Washington State Patrol and a study published in the Seattle Times, there's about 2 million people in Washington State that have criminal records. And about 90% of those people are free of the criminal justice system. And what I mean by that is that they're not on probation, they're not on parole, they're not doing community service or making restitution to the court. So these are people that at some point in their lives have committed some transgression, either a misdemeanor or a felony, and now they're just dragging it around with them for many, many years, and it's preventing them from getting employment opportunities. And second chance employment also, it really benefits communities in a few ways. It has been shown that in communities where employment is high or unemployment is low, depending on how you want to look at it, that there is less poverty, less homelessness, less crime, and there's also a greater tax base for the community to draw upon to provide services in the community. And second chance employment also is a pretty easy way for any employer who is thinking about addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, as Doug mentioned, to kind of address that. Most folks, when they think about DEI, they automatically go to the big two. They go to gender and they go to race. But diversity of background and of economic background is another very important kind of diversity to bring to your workforce. Next slide, please. So, first of all, I didn't list on the slide, but I want to be really clear about what second chance employment is not. Second chance employment is not about charity or a handout. This is what it's about is hiring the best person for your job, regardless of their criminal background. So it's not writing policies that favor people that may have criminal justice involvement in their past. It's about when you get an applicant for your position and they're qualified for the position and you pull a background check on them and they have something in their history that might give you pause, that if they're the most qualified person, that you're still going to create an opportunity for them. So that's really what second chance employment is about. But practices that employers can use is don't have blanket policies. Don't have blanket policies that say that we're absolutely not going to hire anybody who's ever had a misdemeanor or a felony in their background, because you're missing out on some folks. Doug alluded to what the current unemployment rate is. Before the pandemic, the unemployment rate nationally was about 4%. The unemployment rate amongst people who have criminal convictions was 27%. What that says is that there's a huge pool of talented people out there and available and looking for an opportunity to kind of get their foot in the door and prove themselves with your company. And they're going to bring their skills and they're going to bring value. And in exchange, they're going to expect some stuff. They're going to expect money and benefits and the chance to improve their skills. But this is an equal exchange of value. Again, this is not you sacrificing your business to provide an opportunity. There's absolutely nothing in the law that says that as a business, you have to have the exact same background checks for every positions in your company. So if you run a company and you've got the same background check for your accountant as you do for your warehouse worker, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. That may be a way for you to provide an opportunity to get an entry-level foot into your company and perhaps work their way up. One of the things that Doug and I talk about that we see a lot is entry-level positions that say they want somebody who's got 10 years of experience. So if employers write job postings that are a little more inclusive and, quite frankly, a little more realistic, then you can attract some of these potential second chance hires, and again, just widen that pool of people that may actually be attracted to your business. And the other thing is something that Doug also alluded to, which is Doug talked about spending a little more time with applicants, and I encourage that too. Just kind of get curious about people. When you see if someone applies for your position and they happen to have a criminal background, ask them some questions about that. Can you please provide me an explanation about this if they haven't already? And more importantly, ask them what they've done to live their lives differently since that happened. Quite frankly, you're going to find a lot of folks that are volunteering in their community and they have reconnected with the church and they have started to build these networks for themselves that indicate that they're trying to be a different person than they were before. And that's going to give you an opportunity as an employer to pluck a diamond out of the rough and maybe get somebody that other employers won't, because you're also going to have a lot less competition when you open up your hiring practices, because not every employer is open to providing opportunity for these folks. Next slide, please. And so whenever I meet employers that say that they're open to providing employment opportunities, the next question is always, great, Ty, you're brilliant. I love your presentation. And you've now convinced me that I need to do this because of the power of persuasion that you have. Then they ask me, where do I go to get talent? So there are several organizations that you can go to. Pioneer Human Services and Orion Industries both maintain presences here in Snohomish County. And the great thing about it is that they also provide wraparound services. So as we know, what happens for an employee outside of work can greatly impact their performance on the job. And these organizations they work with individuals that have past criminal justice involvement, but they work for them with the services, they provide services for them that help them stay on the job. So they're going to work with you to provide them retention services, but they also work with the employee to address childcare, housing, transportation, mental health issues that may come up. So you really get the benefit of almost a shadow, kind of a shadow HR department, even after that employee has been hired. And I'm actually working on a network right now in Snohomish County to actually bring together employers and those individuals who may need second chances in employment. So next slide is my contact information. Doug and I are going to provide these slides for everybody to have after the conference. And I think we've got 45 seconds for questions. So if there's any questions, we're happy to take them now.
We are right to the end. You're right, Ty.
Sorry, guys.
No, beautifully done. We are on time. We have 1 minute to spare. Any questions? I will unmute you all so you can ask questions.
And of course, if you have questions, but you don't have time to ask them here, feel free to email either Doug or me, and we'll be happy to provide whatever info we can.
Super. Thank you, both Doug and Ty. You did a fabulous job giving us an overview and resources. These resources will be available to you, as Ty had mentioned, and our recordings will also be available. So, gentlemen,
I want to do a quick plug. If you are a business and want to get connected with WorkSource but are not already, please get in touch with me and my business solutions team. We're happy to provide you any additional assistance. So yes, just wanted to do a quick plug for our own team here, making sure that we're offering those resources for folks.
Thank you so very much, gentlemen. And it looks like we have a new set of folks. I'm going to stop recording.